What's that sound? It's for amusement only, the EM and Bingo Pinball Podcast. Welcome back to For Amusement Only. This is Nick Baldridge. Excuse me a minute. That's better. Tonight I wanted to continue our discussion of the insides of a Bally Bingo and talk about the lifter. Now the lifter gets its signal to lift from several different sources, but the main one is the lifter start relay. This is typically mounted in the back of the playfield near the shutter motor. When the lifter starts moving, you want to get your hand out of the way because there is a metal bar that goes across which forms the lifter cup, shall we say, or platform, and that meets with another piece of metal as the cam rotates, that the motor turns, and it's very easy to pinch your fingers very badly in this position. The other thing to note is if you're having timer step-up problems, there are a few switches which are connected to the cams located on the lifter motor. One of those switches handles timer step-up with each ball lift, as long as it's not a ball that's been returned to you. If it's a new ball coming into play, the timer will step up automatically as the ball is lifted. This whole circuit and the way that it times out is pretty fascinating, the way it was designed. I'm consistently amazed, even today, that in the 1950s, Bally was able to figure out how many balls had been played even if one came back to you. Now it does this, in a fairly simple manner through the use of the timer unit and so forth, but when the ball comes back to you, how does the game know how many there are? In most Bally Bingos, there are not 8 trough switches if it's a game with 3 extra balls, but there are enough that for a 5-ball game, it knows exactly when the last one fired and when the next one should go. It's all very amazing to see in action, though, because the game will also not time out a particular feature until you have played and landed the ball in question and the next one has been lifted. And the lifter motor is one of the actors that controls all of this. Now, aside from that, while on the topic of the lifter motor, these games were some of the first to use an automatically lifted ball. You don't have to plunge your ball up to the shooter lane. Other manufacturers would continue to use the plunger style for a very long time beyond the invention of the bingo. But Bally realized that they needed a way to control the frequency of lifting and prevent you from shooting all 5 balls into the shooter lane at the same time. But also, they needed a way to prevent cheating. So this lifter motor serves a dual purpose because it prevents you from cheating the machine, cheating the location, etc. by lifting a ball when you're not supposed to. One of the things I mentioned previously that I got a question on was the lifter override button. Now, because the game keeps track of the game state as you're playing, again, a wholly fascinating concept for the 50s and 60s, because it keeps track of the game state. If for some reason there's a trough jam or something causes the machine to forget which ball is in play currently, if you just push that button that's located right below the shooter rod, it'll lift a ball to the shooter lane, and it knows that that's appropriate. Some games it cares about this a lot, other games it doesn't care at all. So it just depends on the type of bingo that you're working on, as I mentioned before. But the lifter motor, when at first glance it just seems like all it's doing is serving a ball to you. When you get deeper into it, you realize that it's actually controlling quite a bit. So, that's all for tonight. Thank you again for joining me. My name again is Nick Baldridge. You can reach me at foramusementonlypodcast@gmail.com, or you can call me on the Bingos line. That's 724-BINGOS1, 724-246-4671. You can listen to us on iTunes, Stitcher, Pocket Casts, via RSS, on Facebook, on Twitter, at Bingo Podcast. You can follow me on Instagram at nbaldridge, or you can listen to us on our website, which is foramusementonly.libsyn.com. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.